Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first of the 2019 Trunion Appraisal Trainings. My name is Sally Carruthers, and I'm the President CEO of Trunion. We're going to talk a little about Trunion. I know many of you have been working with us for some time, but I just want to go through a few things. But some housekeeping items. First of all, I have a little bit of an accent, and I tend to talk rather quickly. So sometimes people can't understand. So I'm going to try and speak fairly slowly so everybody can understand me. I assure you this is the Queen's English. But if you do not understand anything, or you didn't see something, or you didn't understand what I said, just send me an email at the end and I'll give you a call and we can have a chat about it. Okay, so let's talk about Trunion. We are a fairly small company, and we like to say small but mighty. And we're made up of, not a lot of people. And but the main thing I want to say to you guys is that, first of all, we are appraiser-centric, and we have only credit union clients. Right now on this call, I think I have a lot of appraisers, but I also have some credit union clients too. We invited our credit unions to join us. We were founded out of an appraisal firm. I myself am an appraiser. Can't say that properly. All our clients are credit unions, and in fact, we have credit union ownership. We are a CUSO, so we're a credit union organization and are owned by credit unions. We have the ability to work outside of that credit union space, but at the moment we choose not to. We work with credit unions and their CUSOs sometimes. So if we do work for a mortgage company, it is in the credit union space. We have a major emphasis on quality and service. The last I looked, our turn times are running about 6.6 days, which is fantastic in our field, and I don't mean to this to be a big kind of advertisement for Trunion, but we really are very good at service and quality. I think primarily because we understand our clients and we understand our appraisers. We are a little different from other AMCs in that we don't have customer service representatives or account managers or vendor managers in the same way that most traditional AMCs do. Because our clients are primarily credit unions, they tend to be regional in their workspace and their footprint. So our, what we call PRS people, partner relations specialists, manage our clients and our appraisers. So there is a direct relationship with the credit union, then the appraiser who is performing assignments for that credit union. That helps us to kind of streamline the process and move things along a lot quicker, and helps us make sure that we have the best appraiser, for the actual assignment. So a little bit different in that way. Now, one of the things that happens is that we are fairly small, so we're able to do that. But also, we're able to improve on our quality and our service and keep on working smoothly. So we really enjoy that way of doing that. Going back to our appraiser roots, we are grounded in the appraisal profession, and we're going to talk a little about advocacy, but Trunion is very, very committed to the appraisal profession. We sit on the Industry Advisory Council for the Appraisal Foundation, and so we are actively part of what is going on at the grassroots of your appraisal business. And so we are there for meetings of the Appraisal Standards Board, the Appraisal Qualifications Board, and any new things that may be going on in our industry. We are also members of, we're actually based out of Dayton, Ohio. We belong to the Ohio Appraiser Coalition, and actually our founding owner actually founded the Appraisal Coalition, the Ohio Coalition. So with that, again, we advocate for appraisers. We actually have a scholarship for a Ohio trainee appraiser, and we'll be willing to work with any of our appraisers as they train their appraisers. So it's a major part of what we do. And also with that, we also work in the credit union space, and we advocate for our credit union partners too. So a little bit different from your larger AMC that really isn't kind of interested in what you guys are doing, what appraisers are doing, actually with their boots on the ground, working each day, appraising properties. I want to go through a little bit before we move on to kind of how the life cycle of an appraisal. I mean, you pretty much understand, we get the appraisal order, we send out the engagement letter, guys do the inspection, you develop and then report the appraisal. It goes through QC and we deliver the appraisal. And that's not that much different from most AMCs. The only thing is that we have our hands on every single part of that. Even though we do use technology in that we, obviously auto-assign some assignments, but we are measuring you guys every day automatically. We actually have real-life appraiser scoring, and that measures your SSR scores, your revisions, underwriting conditions, maybe how long you take to do the appraisal. Not just how long you take to do the appraisal, but how long does it take you to get an inspection, or how long does it take from your inspection to delivery. How many late reports you have. All that is calculated into your scoring so that we can always ensure that we are delivering to our clients as quickly as we can. We have changed things up a lot in the last few months in that we have sped up QC. There is nothing more frustrating for you guys than getting your report done. It goes into QC and then, whoops, where does it go? And then, 2 days later, you might get a revision request. So we are really working on getting that QC function under 4 hours if we can, so that, and it's frustrating for our credit union clients. They can see that the report went into QC, but they have to wait for the report. So we kind of sped that up a lot more. So, but with that, it takes work from our appraisers. So we need to make sure that we always have that underwriter-ready report. So it's a lot quicker going through QC. So we have some technology around our QC process that helps us, and then we have an SSR, and we're going to talk about that later. So let's move on to the next slide. So how do you succeed? How can our appraisers succeed? You guys go through continuing education. You go through a lot of, you guys are very smart people. You have great qualifications and all kinds of things. Many of you have a lot of experience. I'm not sure if you've maybe some of you have probably been doing it as long as I have. And, I think I've been in this business about 40 years, which makes me incredibly old. So, but I know many of you have a lot of experience, and I don't want to kind of repeat some of the things that you might hear in a USPAP class or a continuing education class. I want to kind of talk about some things that maybe you just don't think about. The main thing for us is communication, and that doesn't mean that you have to write us War and Peace every time you can't get into a property for an inspection. But just touch base with us and let us know what's going on. Communication. Don't let us sit and guess. I know I probably sound like a broken record, but communication can be a very quick email. to us. You don't have to pick up the phone. You don't have to talk to us. We like to talk to you, but communication is essential in our business. Essential that we know how you are getting on with your assignments, how they are moving through the system. Just a simple email. So, for example, you get a revision request. Don't send back something to say, to clarify it. Just say, I'll have the amended report back in an hour or something like that. So quite often we'll have an appraiser who comes back and says, yeah, I noticed that I don't have any sales that have 2 bedrooms. It's like, well, okay, good. But put that into the appraisal report and get it back. Consistency. I talked a little about QC. Some of our really, really good appraisers are consistent. I know exactly where to look on their appraisal to see where a utility statement is or a predominant value is. If you are consistent in your appraisal reports, in your performance, and your service, you will be incredibly successful, not just with that, but with our other clients. And that is with your reports and with what they look like, their quality, their how you get them to us, how you communicate with us. Consistency is incredibly important. Someone once said to me, overpromise, don't overpromise. I got that wrong. Underpromise and overdeliver. So, but consistency is always the best way. Make sure that your reports are consistent in their analysis. What you say on page 1, as far as the neighborhood, matches what you say in the 1004 MC or in your addendum. Don't kind of throw a wrench into your appraisal report by suddenly saying something in the addendum that hasn't been addressed elsewhere in the appraisal report. There's nothing more frustrating for us than looking at an appraisal report and finding when we look at the sketch or the aerial that there is, for example, some adverse condition that has not been addressed within the appraisal report. You have an adverse condition, an industrial facility next to the property or something like that. Tell us about it right up front and then address it throughout the appraisal report as you need to. So consistency. One of the things that we're going to talk a little about Fannie Mae and the SSR, but one thing they are looking for is consistency. So if you say that you use a comparable sale and you say it's in C4 condition, better make sure if you use that comparable sale again, it's in C4 condition, right? It is what the condition was at the point of sale. So consistency. Make sure that you are consistent. And one thing with that is making sure you're consistent somewhat with your peers. So I always encourage appraisers to talk to their peers, to know how they're addressing different items and maybe adjustments or a particular market. There are a whole ton of appraisers out there that you can ask a friend, ask someone. We had an example recently where we said to an appraiser on your 1004D, make sure that you mark the completion certificate. And he said, well, it's not finished. And we said, we realize that. There's another box that says whether it's finished or not. But you need to mark whether you're doing the completion certificate or the update on the 1004D. So he said, well, I need to ask some other appraisers. And he did. And he came back and said, well, you're right. And that is you will learn more from your peers than sitting in your own little office on your own. So I always say, ask a friend. Timeliness, obviously, is one of the most important things. Make sure that you are always beating your due date. Make sure that you are well ahead of your due date. There is nothing more frustrating than having to chase appraisals. And when I say that, also timeliness, it's not just getting that report in. It's also addressing any revisions that you need to do or any underwriting conditions or a reconsideration of value. And we're going to talk about the reconsiderations a little bit. But timeliness is really important. Timeliness of your communication to us, too. We really, really appreciate that when you're ahead of the curve on it. Flexibility. In our profession, we have to have some flexibility. I know that you might want to go and see a property on Monday afternoon, but sometimes that won't work. I know that you may not want to immediately address that revision request. And let me just kind of talk a little about revision request turn times. We do actually give 24 hours on a revision request. That is really, in the case of a difficult revision request, we just sent out a communication to you guys to hope that you can turn around those revision requests within 4 hours if they're simple. If we go back to you and say, hey, you missed marking this box, or you didn't have a utility statement, or you didn't label this photograph, hopefully you can get that back within an hour or so. If you're in the office, we realize that you may not be in the office, so that's why we give that 24 hours. Sometimes we'll come back with something fairly complex that needs that entire time frame, but we really hope to get it back the same business day. Advocacy. We advocate for appraisers, we advocate for credit unions, and we advocate for ourselves. And we like to see our appraisers advocate too. There are a lot of uncertainties right now in our profession, and whether it is potential changes to the de minimis, the use of hybrid appraisals, changes in appraiser qualifications. There are some increased use of big data and automation. There are some big challenges that I see, that TruUnion sees, and we need the voice of our appraisers talking to people, communicating. USPAP is about to change potentially. I think there's a new draft out. Read it, communicate with the Appraisal Foundation. Advocacy helps you become involved in your industry. It helps you in your business, and it helps us to be successful. So I really encourage you to advocate for your profession and for yourselves. So, and I talked about ask a friend. So let's move on to the next slide and talk about reconsiderations of value. So what is a reconsideration of value? I think in just about every profession, somebody has the opportunity to appeal or have a second opinion. Basically, it's the chance to move and see if you can budge something or budge an opinion, or just move to introduce some different data or different facts or information. So, of course, it's not, why wouldn't we have it in our profession? And it is perfectly acceptable. And, one thing I say to appraisers, do not get defensive. Because somebody doesn't agree with your opinion, don't get defensive about it. It happens, and it's just a fact of life. And so we have to facilitate this within our business framework and work with it. So we give the opportunity for each of our credit union clients to reconsider any value that we present. But we do have strict guidelines around it. The most important thing is to protect appraiser independence. We have to ensure that appraisers are not pressured in their value opinion, but on the other side, realizing that there should be some opportunity to appeal the opinion that is provided. So we will always ensure that we protect your independence and your professionalism. So, and we have all kinds of policies and procedures around appraiser independence to ensure that happens, that you are never pressured by a borrower, a realtor, lender, anything like that. And if ever you feel that independence is being violated, there is a email address on your engagement letter for you to contact us, and we will deal with that from there. So please make sure that you know that is on each of the engagement letters that go out. So we will protect your independence. So who is appealing your value? I would say the majority of times it's the borrower for various reasons. Typically, most times it may be a refinance and they think their property's worth a little bit more. It could be a realtor. Maybe your value is below the contract price. We actually have some where they consider the value to be too high. Perhaps they're in a contract negotiation based on value, and they think that value is too high, and they would like to agree to a contract below that value. It's kind of unusual, but it does happen. So there are various reasons that someone may appeal. The borrower gets a copy of your appraisal report, and we also realize that you have to maintain the confidentiality of that appraisal to your client. So there are issues around your assignment results that you have to provide confidentiality to. So remember also the confidentiality section of USPAP specifies assignment results. Some appraisers tend to think, well, I can't talk about value, but I can talk about other things. You can't talk about assignment results. You can talk about facts or public information, but things that like condition is an assignment result. The condition that you decided the property was in is an assignment result. So bear in mind that. Who is paying for this? Well, unfortunately, the appraiser is paying for it. It is, unless there's a particularly complex appeal or maybe multiple appeals, usually there is not any addition to the fee on them. USPAP and the Appraisal Foundation recognize that there absolutely can be appeals. There is a recent white paper out from John Brennan at the Appraisal Foundation on appraisal appeals. I would encourage everybody to look at that, take a look at it. At one point, I think the Appraisal Foundation thought they may come up with a consistent reconsideration format. I don't think that's going to happen. But certainly I think that you will begin to see a lot more consistency around the reconsideration and what it looks like. As far as Trunion is concerned, we make sure we are actually doing some modifications to our reconsideration form right now. Really, it's somewhat more in the formatting of it and some of the wording in it. But essentially, what we always expect to see is that there can be an appeal on the contents of the appraisal report and then on the data utilized in the report. So we would expect to see something perhaps that the borrower or whoever is making the appeal sees as an error or mistake, or perhaps something was reflected wrong in the appraisal, and then alternate sales. So we do review that reconsideration before it goes to you. So you would be quite amazed at how many reconsiderations or appeals that we actually reject. Usually they're the ones that are, five sentences or a paragraph about how much they didn't like the appraisal, but offering no real reason why they didn't like the appraisal. And there's some of them can be quite derogatory to the appraiser, so we would send those back. But usually, so we expect kind of facts. That's what we're wanting to see. We want to see that, the appraiser said I have 3 bedrooms, but actually I have 4. And usually that's a kind of, well, there's another bedroom in the basement, and yes, you did consider that bedroom, but it's in the below area. So, and then offering up some alternate sales. If they offer us just listings, we'll go back to them and say, you don't actually have any closed sales here, we need closed sales. But we can't verify the sales data that is provided. So I know sometimes it's frustrating. You'll get them and you'll find out, well, they're 20 miles away, or they sold 5 years ago, or something like that. If we get them and they are really dated, we will go back. But we do read those reconsiderations before we get them. And so most important, I think, for our appraisers, we want you to defend your appraisal. We want you to do that in a manner that is professional and polite. Remember that your appraisal it's your appraisal. You're signing the certification. So it doesn't help when you go, and I've seen this, not from any of you guys on this call, but I've seen where, the borrower's an idiot, this doesn't make any sense. Or something, as I have said numerous times in this report. No, just reiterate it. We have specified that we measured the square foot and can verify that the gross living area is blah, blah, blah. If you do make a mistake, own up to it. We appreciate the information provided and confirm that blah, 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 blah. It's no good just hiding and not owning up. Just own up to it. The most important thing is professionalism, and to say, put a title in the addendum, rebuttal to appeal. Indicate that there has been an appeal on your appraisal, but this is how you're dealing with it. So own up, put it in a clear place and reiterate the items of the appeal and how you are defending, supporting your appraisal. And remember that, again, also make sure that you change your report date. I don't think I have to tell anybody that, but be very specific and indicate, it in a very specific place. So one thing that's kind of frustrating for us, we might get an appeal and an appraiser decides to deal with it throughout the appraisal. And that's okay to do that if you had to change, say, your room count, or you had to change your sketch, or you had to do, but put something in your addendum to say, upon further review, the gross living area was changed to, with a room count of, this has been amended in the appraisal report, on the front page, in the grid, on the sketch. So just point to where that is so that everybody knows. So again, this is kind of one of those things about doing business that you have to do, and realize that people do have the opportunity to appeal. Some of these appeals may be right, some may not be, but act in an independent, professional way. Okay, let's move on from reconsiderations, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and believe me, I have seen those ugly ones, to our next section, So delivering an underwriter-ready appraisal, I wish that every appraisal came in as underwriter-ready. That would be my dream. What do I mean by that? That basically you deliver the report and I hit a button and it goes straight to the client. And I'm sure the clients who are on this call say, please, Sally, don't do that. Or maybe they want that. But what I mean is that this is, we get a report that can go straight to the client that is ready for them to underwrite and hopefully not come back with any changes. So the first thing is obviously a USPAP compliant report. I'm going to tell you that, the forms that you're using come from, I think the 1004 is from 2005. And obviously since 2005, USPAP has changed. The reporting side has changed. You have things that you have to report on your appraisal that are not hard copied into that 2005 form, including exposure time, prior services. Even the report types have changed. My advice, the best way I can say to address some of those is to complete a 2018-2019 USPAP addendum. It just helps a lot to know that for our reviewers that everything is in one place. Obviously, that's not going to cover everything in USPAP, but the kind of nitpicky reporting items can be caught, the report type, the exposure time, the and your prior services can be there. I would also use your USPAP addendum to report any significant assistance from a trainee, any of your state requirements. Many of the states require that you put your fee in there, and there are some other things that different states have. I know those guys in Illinois have some stuff they need to put in there. So any of your state requirements go into that USPAP addendum. So it just kind of covers a lot, and we know that everything will be there at that time. Read your engagement letter, and read it before you go for your inspection. Not after you're writing your report, after you finish your report, oh, I checked this and this. Read it first, because we may have some requirements. We have clients who require original appraisal, original photographs. Some require photographs of the inside of outbuildings or whatever it is. Read your engagement letter before you go on to your inspection. You really should read your engagement letter, right upon accepting your assignment, so you know what you've got. But that is your footprint on how to do your appraisal. We try to keep your engagement letter as simple as possible. And we try not to go pages long. We try to keep it fairly simple. It's wonderful to work for credit unions because there aren't a lot of overlays to reports, unlike some of the major banks that have several overlays. So really, most of them are pretty much, Fannie Mae driven, perhaps FHA if you're doing FHA assignments, so we don't have a whole bunch of overlays in there. But make sure you read them. The other thing is just double check your photos. I kind of sound, this is kind of a silly thing, but just make sure they're labeled, make sure they're clear, make sure they don't have any people in them, and that your sketches are clear, you have the right bedroom counts. There's nothing more frustrating than having to send back an appraisal just because somebody missed a half bath in a sketch. Maps and your other addenda. Make sure that you got a copy of license in there and run spell check. It's just for your own professionalism. It makes it look better. If you have the correct spelling, the correct grammar, this is your report. You're signing the certification. Most of you have some kind of review tool in your software. Run it, make sure that all the boxes are checked, and everything is compliant. It's UAD compliant. One thing is double check the spelling of the borrower, and that both, if there are two borrowers, they're both included, so there's one borrower, one, and the address of the credit union client. These are silly things, I know. And the basics. If you have other on your land use, somebody's going to want to know where it is, what it is. All your neighborhood boundaries, we're going to check that. Utility statement, predominant value, site value, well and septic. All those things, aged and distant sales, we're going to talk a little about those. You don't have to make an explanation. But remember, don't just use those canned reports, these canned statements. Oh, I used distant sales. Why did you use distant sales? What's wrong with the sales around the subject property? Why didn't you use those? You know, why did you have to go back 10 months for a sale? What's wrong with this neighborhood that nothing is selling? These are the kind of questions you should be asking. Instead of using your canned statements, and I understand, you're going to use canned statements, that happens, but always ask why. Always ask why you're having to do this, because that is what our underwriters are going to ask. Why are there no sales in the last 6 months? What's wrong with that market that there are no sales? Does nobody want to live there? So, you know, or is this property different from everything else? So, you know, one of the things I see is I went 3 miles away to find a sale that was similar, that was the same size as the subject property. Great. So why is there nothing around the subject property that's similar in size? Always ask the why, because our underwriters will ask that. It's not just ticking off all the boxes that you've got all that information in there, but the question is why? Why is there not a recent sale? Why is there not a similar sale? Why is this house bigger than everything else in the neighborhood or anything else that has sold? Why is the predominant value, why is the value above this predominant? Is it an over-improvement? No, there are other similar properties in the neighborhood. It just happens that none have sold recently. So those are the questions that you have to ask. It's not just ticking off the box and making sure you've got it, but also really explaining the why. Another pet peeve is when someone says, I made an adjustment for condition, or I made an adjustment for the fireplace, or I made an adjustment for the site. Great, I can see you made an adjustment. But why did you make that adjustment? And what does it mean? How are you supporting that adjustment? I can see you made an adjustment. You don't have to state it. You need to analyze and report why you made that adjustment. So it's just going that little bit further and understanding, you know, it's not just a kind of ticking off that box and saying, I've got a statement in there why I have no recent sales. You need to say why, and explain it a little bit more. So that's what I mean by delivering an underwriter-ready appraisal. So let's move on to the next. So understanding, let's talk a little about collateral underwriter. So I know I probably have some underwriters in here. So I first of all apologize before even starting to our underwriters, because you guys know this a lot better than I do. So really this is an explanation from an AMC to an appraiser on collateral underwriter and the SSR. So as appraisers, you don't have access to collateral underwriter, Fannie Mae's collateral underwriter, and you don't see the SSR. We, as an AMC, see the SSR if we deliver for our client to the portal, but we don't have access to collateral underwriter. Obviously, our underwriters do. So in a perfect world, all the underwriters would like your appraisal, once it's delivered to Fannie Mae, to come in at a CU score, collateral underwriter score on the SSR of 2.5 or below. So they would love that. And actually, about 72% of yours do, which actually is pretty good, because Fannie Mae estimates about 60% of their appraisals come in at 2.5 or less. So the advantage of getting an SSR score of 2.5 below is it provides the lender certain freedoms from reps and warranties on the property value. Now, let me tell you, if you make a big mistake in your appraisal, that's not going to mean that they're free from anything. But at least it means that there is, what the SSR score is saying is that there is a confidence on the quality of the appraisal report and a confidence on that property value. So the issue is that there are certain things that happen that push up that SSR score below 2.5. Now, some of them are faults with the appraisal, and many of them actually, but they indicate a risk on that appraisal. So I want to go through some of these SSRs to show you how the things that we see and why we come back and ask you questions on some of your appraisals and actually kind of delve into some of these SSR scores. So let's look at the first one here I've got up is an SSR score of 3.1. So we're just a little above that day one certainty. And you'll see on that 3.1, so it's out of 5, and so there will be some risk in there. So it says there's a heightened risk of appraisal quality. Now, when it's saying that and it doesn't say overvaluation, I tend to think that sometimes potentially it's undervaluation. But the one thing here that's causing that risk is that it states it's got a 797 on it, what we say a Fannie Mae warning 797. So the appraiser provided comparables are materially different from the model selected comparables. So remember, Fannie Mae has all that data and all that information, and they're saying, well, okay, you got a 2,000 square foot colonial with 4 bedrooms and 2 baths and a 8,000 square foot site, and we see sales recently of 2,000 square foot properties closer than the ones that you've got. Why did you vacate your neighborhood? And because you vacated your neighborhood, we're kind of bumping up that risk score. Now, this 3.1, what is interesting to it, and I'd love to hear from some of the underwriters on this, is that it's a bit of a risk, but I'm thinking it doesn't show an overvaluation score on it. It doesn't have the one underneath that has a 4. You'll see there's a 1004 warning on it with a heightened risk of overvaluation. So the 3 hasn't triggered anything higher than 3.1. It's saying that there may be alternate sales, and there may be some problems with the appraiser quality, but it's not showing an overvaluation. So on your 4 point, the one underneath it is a 4, and this one has a risk of overvaluation. So what is causing that overvaluation? The indication is coming from some of those comments underneath. And I think that here it shows the appraiser has reported a materially different location for comparable 4 and a different waterfront location. So this one, the appraiser has reported in a prior appraisal something different from what they're reporting in this one. So what the Fannie Mae SSR is warning is like, hey, red light here. Is the appraiser trying to kind of skew the appraisal to this particular property by changing the location and the view, the waterfront location on comp number 4? So we will probably come back to you on this and say, hey, look at comp 4. Did you report this differently in some way before, and ask you to address that. So now, the thing about the lot adjustment, that's kind of common too. Again, we don't see those adjustments. We don't know what the model adjustments are, but there is something that's throwing that off. And all those things together are kind of showing or indicating a risk of overvaluation. Usually you're seeing those adjustments are always in an upward direction, and it's kind of showing a high risk on that. So a little bit different from the one above that is a 3, which doesn't show that overvaluation, but shows that perhaps different sales are being used. But it may be that the property has some conditions or some deferred maintenance issues which caused the appraiser to utilize those sales that aren't exactly what the model selected ones are. So maybe something in there. So let's now look at move on to the next slide, and we'll get the 5. If it wants to move, there we go. So here, this one, now we've hit the 5. Now all the red lights are going off on the SSR thing. We see down at the bottom it has a 797, which means that the appraiser provided comparables are materially different. It indicates there's a heightened risk of quality, and then it looks in there that it sees that the condition rating for comp number 4 is different, and then some adjustments. So there's some different things in that. Now, what we would probably do on this one is we don't have access to collateral underwriters, so we don't know what those model selected comparables are, but we would ask for an explanation on sales utilized or sales that are in the market that were not utilized. So I'm trying to give you this so that you can see what we see and understand some of the kind of revisions that come back, because there will be more questions on anything that is on an SSR 2.5 or above. Okay? So I have 1049. I think the next thing is just to open it up for any questions from anyone. I tried to keep this. Oh, forgot the most important thing, the economic side. Wanted to go over, I am not an economist, don't even pretend to be one, but I kind of am a geek on some of this, on some of the economic things that I hear and talk about, and I think they're very, very, very relevant to our appraisals and our values and what is going on in your markets. And I think as appraisers, sometimes we just get very involved in, let's select the comps, let's get that done, let's get our property appraised, and we forget some of the micro factors that are impacting our markets, our real estate markets, and how they work. So I wanted to talk about 4 major factors that I see on the macro side that impacts real estate. And the first one are interest rates. Interest rates obviously impact people's, they're impacting the demand side, right? They're impacting people's ability to buy. And they are incredibly important, and they're incredibly important also to your business. As you see interest rates rise, obviously our refinance markets, our refinance business starts to kind of dry up, and when they really rise, we might see our purchase market dry up, but that means that demand for houses slows down often, all things being equal. So interest rates, keep an eye on interest. Each one of you should know what the current interest rates are and where they're moving and what they are. I think that today there is a meeting of the Fed, and they're not expecting any interest rate move, and in fact, they probably are not, probably slowing down that rate hike. Business-wise, it's being kind of a slow month. probably that has to do with the government shutdown somewhat. We've stayed fairly steady, but I think the government shutdown has probably had quite an impact on all this. The economy overall, measured by economic indicators such as GDP, employment data, manufacturing activity, price of goods. So let's look at that. If you are in a recession with high unemployment, so we think back to, say, 2009, 2010, high unemployment led to foreclosures, which led to increased supply. So you had housing inventories going out and being loans. Right now, we have very low unemployment. So we have a high demand for properties, and even though interest rates have risen a little bit, it hasn't dampened that demand for real estate. Government policies and subsidies. This is a major thing. So if you think back to 2009, we had a sluggish economy, and then we had the first-time home buyers tax credit. If you remember back, that apparently increased the buying potential of 1 million buyers. So added 1 million buyers into the fold that wasn't there before. So last year we saw, a tax incentive, and that probably assisted with, increased purchasing or demand in the marketplace. So all these factors are really important. Interesting enough, all this data for the last quarter, they're going back to the economic data, the employment statistics, manufacturing activity, GDP is all on hold right now because the government entity that actually publishes that was shut down during the government shutdown. So we should have been seeing some of those things coming into play here for the last quarter, but that will be actually probably late. So even that is impacted by the government shutdown. Demographics, which is the composition of the population, such as age, income, population growth. Very important to our real estate markets. I heard an interesting thing this morning that one of the toughest things, right, one of the biggest impacts on our economy right now are the limitations of employment, of young people getting into employment. For the first time ever, there are essentially less people being born than less people dying. So we have people living longer, but our birth rates are down. And with that, the availability of young people getting into the workforce. And, the irony, doesn't matter which political way, that the way that we traditionally have overcome that is by immigration. So it kind of, if we have policies that restrict immigration and we have policies and we have lower birth rates, that can potentially impact our ability to get people into employment positions. So, whichever political side you're on, these are kind of important factors. Why are they important to us as appraisers? Well, these people who have great jobs or jobs are the people that buy houses. And so we want that employment situation to work. So all that, all goes back to that supply and demand. So let's look at some of the local things, the micro stuff that will impact us. Demand and supply. So inventory levels. So right now, I don't know, depends on your market, but things you should be looking at on your demand, supply, inventory levels. What actually is the supply like? Like absorption rates. How much of that supply is being taken up? Price growth and contraction. Obviously, I see this on appraisal reports. how can you have a decreasing market when you've got limited supply and a lot of demand, and marketing times that are short? So all these things have to work together. So understand that if you're seeing marketing times, days on market very short, and you're seeing increased demand and you've got low interest rates and you've got limited supply or limited inventory levels, you're probably going to see some kind of price increase. So, but all of that, it plays around also the property types and the location. So going back to some of your other things, we have, you may have businesses closing, or we have in Ohio and part of Ohio where GE is pulling out. What does that do to that local market? But always be thinking about this. Always be thinking about that. Something that obviously always comes to play in the residential market is school district and the demand for different types of school district and location. But be consistent. So make sure that you don't have something like, I've got marketing times of, a year, but I've got limited supply. That doesn't make sense. Make sure that you're being consistent in your analysis and your reporting of and a lot of you have pretty, you may have some pretty standardized templates. Remember to keep looking at what you're writing about your neighborhoods and what is driving those market and what economic factors are there. Remember the difference also between marketing time and exposure time. Exposure time is the foundation of your value. If you are going to say a property is worth X amount of time, it only works when you qualify it with an exposure time. So if you think about it, a property that might sell in a day may sell for less than something that takes 30 days. So if you're going to say a property is worth something, it has to be backed by an exposure time, and that exposure time has to be extracted from your market. In other words, how long is it taking your comparable sales to sell at that price range? And that'll help. I see so often that people just kind of have some standardized thing in there about their exposure time. So I apologize, but I think I have probably gone for an hour, a little bit longer than I hope to go. But if anybody does have, I think the next slide has my email address on it, and feel free to send me in an email. If you do have any questions, please, let me know. And as I said, I think, later on, maybe in a couple of months, we will try and kind of arrange some roundtables to get everybody involved. And I appreciate everybody being on this call this morning. And hopefully there's just something that you learned. Hopefully I wasn't talking too quickly. And again, appreciate it. And send me an email. I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.